What if I told you that the most successful men in history, the ones who built empires, conquered failure, and left a mark not in sand but in stone, were not driven by motivation, but by clarity? That their achievements were not the product of boundless optimism, but of brutal inner discipline? That success, in its truest form, does not begin in vision boards or investor decks, but in a mind that has learned to command itself first. The modern world defines success by its noise: headlines, bank accounts, followers, billboards. But if you strip the noise away, what remains? Quiet habits, endurance in obscurity, decisions made under pressure, self-restraint in temptation, the refusal to react, the ability to remain calm while others collapse. And who taught us these things? The Stoics. Not businessmen, not influencers, not motivational speakers, but men who practiced control in the face of death, men who governed empires while battling illness, men who were exiled, betrayed, beaten, and remembered not for how loudly they fought, but for how quietly they stood. You've never seen a Stoic post their wins, but they win, over and over, because they are rooted where others float, because they do not need the world to confirm who they are before acting like it. The illusion of loud success. Look at the world today. Entrepreneurs chasing the next 10x result. Artists sacrificing their piece for relevance. Athletes burned out by 30. Everyone wants greatness, but few ask, what sustains it? The culture rewards extremes, the all-nighters, the chaos, the hunger, the idea that unless you're breaking down, you're not pushing hard enough. But this is not success. This is self-destruction in disguise. Success that cannot survive silence is not success. It is dependency. The Stoic man walks another path. He is invisible during the storm, quiet during the celebration. He does not post about his discipline. He does not explain his resilience. He does not beg the world to see his worth, because he has already decided what it is. And so, when his moment comes, it is not luck. It is not hype. It is a harvest. And the world, shocked, says, "Where did this man come from?" But he knows. He came from years of self-rule, from internal victories no one clapped for, from wars against impulse, ego, and distraction. Stoicism is not just for suffering. It's for building. Most people encounter Stoicism in crisis. A breakup, a death, a collapse. They reach for the meditations like a life raft in the dark. But that's not where Stoicism ends. That's where it begins. Because once the smoke clears, you realize Stoicism doesn't just get you through the fire. It teaches you how to build something worthy after the ashes. Success requires the same muscles that Stoicism trains. Focus, not the dopamine-driven kind, but the kind born from discipline. Clarity, not from motivational quotes, but from self-interrogation. Restraint, saying no when the world begs you to say yes. Endurance, not just through suffering, but through routine. Detachment, not from purpose, but from outcome. These are not optional. They are foundational, and they are not taught in business school. They are trained in solitude. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor, not a monk. Consider this. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the world. He commanded armies, governed an empire, wrote laws, oversaw justice. He was not sitting in a cave meditating on virtue. He was in the arena, just like you. And what was his most consistent habit? Journaling his thoughts, reviewing his failures, realigning with his purpose. Not to show the world, but to remind himself. Because the higher you rise, the more seductive the applause becomes. The more people tell you what you want to hear. The more you start to believe your image instead of your essence. Marcus fought that. He reminded himself daily that fame was fleeting, that comfort was corruptible, that power without virtue was a cancer. And that is why he succeeded, not just politically, but existentially. He died not as a man who ruled others. He died as a man who had ruled himself. Modern success is built on ancient soil. We think we're building something new, but every skyscraper of success stands on soil that was turned by ancient hands. Discipline, Epictetus taught it in chains. Focus, Seneca taught it in exile. Emotional control, Marcus taught it while his empire unraveled. These men didn't have LinkedIn. They didn't sell courses. They didn't brand themselves as productivity experts. And yet, they laid the foundation for everything we now pretend is modern. The Stoic doesn't chase success. He becomes it. His process is the reward. His values are the compass. His peace is the profit. And when he succeeds, the world claps. But he does not dance for it, because he has already celebrated in silence. Every time he woke up and did what was hard without applause. Every time he chose the long game. Every time he endured one more day with integrity. Success, without Stoicism, is a fire without a hearth. You can succeed without Stoicism. You can get rich, get famous, build an empire, but you will burn out. Because without Stoic roots, success becomes fire without structure. It rages hot, then consumes everything, including the man who built it. But with Stoicism, success becomes a slow fire in a well-built hearth. It warms you, it sustains you. It becomes a source of power that doesn't destroy. The Stoic doesn't fear success. He prepares for it. He trains for the weight of it. He sharpens his inner blade so that when the time comes, he cuts through confusion like light through fog. He does not stumble into greatness. He arrives, prepared, rooted, unmoved. When you observe a man who has achieved real success, not loud, fleeting, fame-chasing success, but deep, consistent, earned success, you notice something strange. He is slower to speak, slower to celebrate, slower to promise, but faster to act, faster to let go, faster to move forward without needing applause. What you're seeing is not just personality. You're seeing philosophy in motion. You're seeing the silent power of Stoicism. Because where most chase advantage through noise, the Stoic carves his through stillness. And stillness, in a world addicted to speed, is the rarest and most valuable trait of all. Patience is the real speed. We live in a culture that confuses motion with momentum. If you're not sprinting, you're failing. If you're not expanding, you're falling behind. If you're not constantly innovating, disrupting, pivoting, you must be irrelevant. But the Stoic understands something the modern man forgets. Patience is the real speed, because patience creates the space for better decisions, for cleaner execution, for deeper focus. And in time, this patience compounds into unstoppable progress, while others burn out chasing dopamine. The Stoic builds in decades, while others think in days. He doesn't obsess over overnight wins. He cultivates directional discipline, knowing that mastery is not a series of explosions, but a quiet fire that never goes out. Clarity over emotion. Success demands decisions, every day, what to focus on, what to ignore, who to trust, where to invest, when to walk away, when to stay still. And yet, most decisions are made not through reason, but through emotion, fear, anger, pride, excitement, urgency. This is where Stoicism becomes a competitive advantage. Because while others are being manipulated by their moods, the Stoic remains steady. He sees through the fog. He knows his triggers. He has practiced restraint in the small things so he can act with power in the big things. Seneca once wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Modern success is war, psychological, emotional, and ethical. And the man who has never trained his clarity under pressure will break when it matters most. The Stoic does not fear the pressure. He expects it, and more than that, he uses it, the power of emotional transmutation. Most men suppress emotion. The Stoic transforms it. He doesn't pretend he's above anger. He refines it into conviction. He doesn't eliminate desire. He channels it into vision. He doesn't deny fear. He examines it until it becomes data. This is the hidden engine of his progress, not avoidance of feeling, but the alchemy of it. When others drown in emotional reaction, he turns those waves into direction. This is how he leads, how he writes, how he builds, by making emotion serve him, not as a tyrant, but as a tool. Marcus Aurelius fought wars, buried children, suffered illness, and still wrote every day. His own emotional weather, mapped and navigated like a sailor watching the stars. His journal was not decoration, it was survival, and eventually it became legacy. Freedom from outcome, the rarest success principle. Most people tie their value to results. The Stoic does not. Not because he doesn't care, but because he knows results are unstable. Today, you're praised. Tomorrow, forgotten. Today, you win. Tomorrow, you stumble. If your sense of self rides that roller coaster, you will lose everything the moment something external shifts. But the Stoic? He ties his worth to effort aligned with virtue. He focuses on the process, because it's the only thing he fully controls. And when you do this long enough, something extraordinary happens. You become dangerous in the best way. Not because you're immune to failure, but because you're not addicted to success. And that makes you unshakable, because your value no longer depends on outcomes. It depends on whether you acted according to your principles. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "Just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter." That kind of detachment isn't apathy, it's clarity, and it gives you a freedom most men never taste. Indifference to praise and criticism. The Stoic does not shrink from criticism. He studies it, but he also does not feast on praise, because both are traps. Praise is seductive, criticism is sharp, but neither are truth by default. The Stoic returns always to one question. Was my action virtuous? Not, did they like it? Not, did it work immediately? Not, did they applaud? Only, was it just, reasoned, necessary? If so, he sleeps well, even if the world misunderstands him. This is how success becomes clean, not tainted by need, not poisoned by pride, not inflated by applause, not silenced by judgment, but clean, purely aligned with what was right. This gives him consistency. While others flail between trying to impress and trying not to offend, he simply moves forward. Resilience without noise. What happens when everything collapses? The business fails. The partner leaves. The reputation is damaged. This is where you see who's real, because the man without stoicism panics. He overreacts. He grasps. He rages. He spirals. The Stoic? He returns to principle. He journals. He simplifies. He breathes. He does not beg the world to change. He adjusts his posture. And then he begins again. This is what Marcus did when Rome burned. What Epictetus did when he was beaten in chains. What Seneca did when he was forced to die by the hand of his emperor. They met collapse with composure. Not because they didn't hurt, but because they had trained for that very moment. They knew. Success is not the absence of defeat. It is the refusal to be ruled by it. When people see the results, they often assume brilliance, talent, luck. But success, real success, is almost never a product of genius. It is a product of systems, quiet routines, relentless alignment, invisible victories over oneself, repeated daily when no one is watching. That's where Stoicism lives, not in the spotlight, but in the discipline behind it. The world rewards the loud, but follows the rooted. Spend enough time around powerful people, and you'll see the same pattern. The loudest ones rise fast, but burn out. The charming ones open doors, but cannot lead through crisis. The aggressive ones win battles, but lose loyalty. And then there are the few, the rare few, who are anchored. They listen more than they speak. They move with rhythm, not reaction. They are hard to read, but impossible to rattle. These are the Stoic builders, the ones who don't need to dominate a room, because they are the room. Their presence does not demand attention. It commands alignment. Why? Because they are not trying to impress. They are trying to build something that lasts. And what lasts is not built from charisma or aggression. It's built from unshakable values that don't fluctuate with trends, markets, or moods. The rituals of success are boring. That's the point. Most people fail not because they aren't capable, but because they cannot endure boredom. They chase novelty, distraction, stimulation. They're addicted to the chase, but allergic to the stillness required for mastery. The Stoic thrives in repetition. He wakes early, not because it's fashionable, but because it creates space for stillness. He journals, not because it's a trend, but because it creates self-audit. He trains, not for aesthetics, but to keep the body in harmony with the mind. He reflects, not for guilt, but for calibration. This rhythm is not glamorous, but it's invincible. Because when chaos comes, when the spotlight burns, when the stakes rise, the Stoic doesn't shift. He returns to form. He trusts his system, and the system carries him when motivation runs dry. Leadership without the need to be worshipped. A Stoic leader does not lead from ego. He does not gather followers to be praised. He creates clarity, then steps back. He speaks less, but with precision. He delegates without guilt. He leads not to be seen, but to ensure that what matters gets done. Seneca advised Nero. Marcus ruled an empire. Epictetus mentored men who would go on to reshape regions. None of them spoke about influence or personal brands. They spoke about service. Stoicism removes the addiction to significance and replaces it with responsibility. Because success is not built by asking, "How can I be more visible?" but by asking, "What must I become in order to bear this weight without cracking?" The Stoic builds the interior first, because he knows the external will eventually test it. Now, some exciting news. Our channel now offers a members club. By joining it, you'll unlock exclusive benefits, deeper content dives, and personal insights. Join us on this journey, and let's build a meaningful life together. And I also humbly ask you to leave a comment, as it helps my channel immensely. If you do not know what to comment, just write "better every day," so I know you reached this far. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Also, I've linked some books on Stoicism that helped me become the man I am today, and will also help you achieve a Stoic mindset. Long-term vision requires short-term humility. Stoicism teaches you to zoom out, to look at life in decades, to see today's frustration as a thread in a larger tapestry. But here's the secret. To think long-term, you must act humbly in the short term. That means being wrong and correcting yourself, delaying pleasure when it endangers the goal, admitting when you're not ready, asking questions instead of pretending to know. This humility isn't weakness. It's how the Stoic compounds power. Because every time he chooses not to defend his ego, he reclaims energy. And over time, that energy turns into better judgment, sharper instinct, and deeper trust. The world rushes to be seen. The Stoic builds quietly. So, when the world is ready, the work speaks louder than the man ever could. When success comes, you stay unchanged. Here's the final test of Stoicism in success. Will you remain the same man when you win? Because many train discipline to get there, then abandon it when they arrive. Many embrace humility while climbing, but swap it for pride once they stand at the top. Many hold tight to values, until success offers a more seductive script. The Stoic doesn't change at the peak. He becomes even more precise. Because he knows, fame doesn't improve character, money doesn't improve ethics, power doesn't improve impulse. If anything, they reveal it all more clearly. So the Stoic prepares not just for failure, but for victory. He trains to be the kind of man who can win without becoming a stranger to himself. That's why Marcus wrote every morning. Not because he needed motivation, but because success made the soul harder to hear. And every morning, he chose to listen. You must be the same man in private and in public. This is the final alignment Stoicism demands of the successful, that there be no difference between who you are when watched and who you are when alone. It's not perfection, it's coherence. The Stoic doesn't have to manage his image. He simply is who he is, and that is his power. He doesn't fear being exposed, because there's nothing he's faking. No secret duplicity, no performance of principle, no rented virtue. Just a man, grounded, real, the same on the mountain as in the valley. When most men speak of success, they point to the visible, the numbers, the credentials, the outcomes. They measure it in currency, in reach, in attention. But the Stoic understands that all visible success is simply the outer bark of an invisible root system. That beneath every empire stands not the ego of its ruler, but the rhythm of his character. And it is here, quiet, uncelebrated, often unnoticed, where true greatness is forged. A man may appear to succeed through cunning. He may rise through manipulation, intimidation, deception. But this is not success. It is acceleration. And acceleration without grounding is what makes rockets explode. The Stoic does not rise quickly. He rises rightly. Not because he lacks ambition, but because he knows that anything built without virtue becomes a threat the moment pressure arrives. He doesn't fear failure because of pride. He fears success without alignment. And so he moves differently, slower, more deliberately, less seduced by offers that contradict his values. He says no to what others would kill to say yes to, not because he doesn't want power, but because he has studied what power does to men who are not ready. This is not theory, it is strategy. Because virtue, far from being abstract morality, is the only internal infrastructure strong enough to support the weight of real accomplishment. Honesty prevents you from creating systems that will collapse under scrutiny. Temperance prevents you from celebrating too soon. Courage ensures you act when it's risky, not just when it's convenient. And justice, perhaps the most forgotten of the Stoic virtues, forces you to ask whether your wins are real wins, or just clever rearrangements of someone else's suffering. The modern world rewards what looks good now. Stoicism builds what endures later. And while others fight for metrics and optics, the Stoic quietly builds the kind of integrity that makes empires sustainable, not just scalable. Why the Stoic fears nothing and no one to the average observer. The Stoic may appear indifferent, detached, even dangerous in his calm. But what they often misinterpret as arrogance is in fact fearlessness. A fearlessness earned not through bravado, but through philosophical preparation. Most people fear being exposed. They fear criticism, fear loss, fear being misunderstood. And so they posture, they decorate their identities, they tell half-truths, and build houses of mirrors that eventually distort them beyond recognition. But the Stoic has already stripped himself down. In private, in writing, in reflection, he has already faced what others hide. He has acknowledged his weaknesses. He has confronted his vanities. He has sat with his shame, and in doing so, he has robbed the world of its power to humiliate him. He does not fear being misunderstood, because he no longer lives to be understood. He does not fear being criticized, because he critiques himself daily with more rigor than any enemy could. He does not fear loss, because he has already rehearsed it, made peace with it, and built his identity on something the market cannot take. That kind of man cannot be blackmailed. He cannot be emotionally manipulated. He cannot be controlled through social pressure. And in a world that runs on image, that kind of man is a threat to the system, because he no longer needs it. Discomfort as discipline, the edge. Others avoid success requires discomfort, not occasionally, but constantly. And while others seek comfort as reward, the Stoic trains in discomfort as a lifestyle. He practices what Seneca called voluntary hardship, sleeping on the floor, eating less, exposing himself to cold, to silence, to tedium. Not because he enjoys suffering, but because he understands that the man who is intimate with difficulty cannot be broken by it. Most of the world is crippled by its avoidance of discomfort. People delay confrontation and call it tact. They avoid risk and call it responsibility. They soften their words, their goals, their principles, and call it compromise. But the Stoic walks into discomfort like a craftsman returns to his bench. He sharpens his mind on adversity. He refines his spirit on pressure. He doesn't wait for challenges to find him. He seeks them, studies them, and becomes their equal. This is what allows him to remain sharp when others dull, to act when others freeze, to carry the burden when others collapse. He does not hope for ease, because he knows ease is not what he was built for. He was built for impact, and impact is never comfortable. Success that doesn't require reinvention. There is a pattern in modern success. Men rise quickly, achieve some notoriety, then disappear, or worse, rebrand. Reinvention has become a necessity for those whose image outpaced their substance. But the Stoic does not require reinvention. He requires refinement, because he never strayed so far from his center that he became unrecognizable to himself. He never inflated his brand to the point that it devoured the man who built it. This is why the Stoic's success feels different. It is not performative. It is not an escape from who he is. It is an extension of it. You will not find him pivoting his values every time the market shifts. You will not find him performing a different version of himself in every room he enters. He has built one foundation, and he has reinforced it with such rigor that it holds no matter how high he climbs. And so, while others are constantly adapting their personality to fit the moment, The Stoic simply is. The same in failure as in victory, the same in obscurity as in fame, the same in gain as in grief. That kind of consistency is magnetic. It breeds trust. And trust, especially in a world flooded with deception, is a currency more valuable than capital. When success feels empty, Stoicism restores the why. There will come a moment, perhaps many, when even the successful man will ask, "Why am I doing this?" The money is there, the praise, the invitations, the victories. And yet, there's a hollowness, an ache that success alone cannot touch. The Stoic prepares for this moment, not with panic, but with perspective. Because to the Stoic, success has never been the point. Success is simply a natural byproduct of a life lived with internal order. The real reward is not what you build, but who you become while building it. And so, when the applause fades, the Stoic is not disoriented. He remains calm. Because his purpose never lived in the noise, it lived in the discipline. This is how Stoicism protects against burnout. Not by encouraging rest for its own sake, but by reminding you that the why of your effort must always be stronger than the what. It aligns you with legacy, with principle, with the deeper mission underneath all the spreadsheets and milestones. And in doing so, it turns your success into something sacred, not just strategic. You've seen men win, loudly, grandly. The spotlight hits, the crowd roars, the deals close, the stage is theirs. But then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, something breaks. Not in their image, in their foundation. They begin to crumble under the very weight of what they built. The wealth becomes noise. The brand becomes a prison. The audience becomes expectation. And the success, once golden, now tastes like dust. Because you can build an empire and still rot from the inside. This is what the Stoics saw before it became cliché, before it became self-help, before burnout became a marketing term. The Stoic didn't just study virtue as theory. He studied it as insulation. He understood that if you did not master yourself, your achievements would eventually master you. This is why Marcus Aurelius returned to the same truths day after day. That all things fade, that praise is wind, that death is near, that the only thing that matters, truly, is whether your actions were just, your heart unpolluted, your purpose aligned. The Stoic is not afraid of success, but he prepares for its side effects with the same seriousness a warrior prepares for battle. Because he knows, success does not change you, it reveals you. And if you are not grounded when you arrive, you won't survive what you find there. Purpose over power. There is a quiet moment that separates the Stoic from the strategist. It's the moment when both are offered more wealth, more attention, more influence, more reach. The strategist asks, "Can I take it?" The Stoic asks, "Should I?" Because the Stoic measures opportunity not by scale, but by alignment. He does not chase the next thing out of boredom. He does not grab for more just because it's offered. He consults something deeper than hunger, his purpose. And if the opportunity violates that purpose, even slightly, he declines. Not bitterly, not loudly, just cleanly, and moves on. This confuses people. How can a man turn down something so obviously beneficial? But the Stoic is playing a longer game, a cleaner game. One not measured by the width of his influence, but by the clarity of his conscience. He knows that every decision adds up, not just in results, but in identity, and that no external win is worth an internal fracture. That is why his success feels different. It's not just big, it's pure. Simplicity as signal. look into the life of a true Stoic high performer and you'll find something surprising. It's simple, not empty, not minimal for aesthetic, but clear. There is rhythm, not chaos, routine, not impulse, boundaries, not constant motion. The Stoic does not need 10 projects to feel alive. He does not juggle obligations to appear valuable. He builds his life like an archer draws a bow. Tension held only long enough to fire with precision. Then rest, recalibration, readiness for the next shot. This is why he seems so efficient, because he's not spending energy on proving he's busy. The world races to be everywhere. The Stoic chooses exactly where to be. That kind of precision is not just efficient, it is powerful, because it trains the mind to focus like a laser and the heart to remain undistracted by lesser things. The man who no longer needs the win, but wins. Anyway, at some point, the Stoic realizes something strange. The more he lets go of his attachment to victory, the more often it comes. Not because he's indifferent, but because his mind is no longer fogged by obsession. His choices are no longer distorted by desperation. He acts with clean intent, detached from outcome. And, paradoxically, that detachment sharpens his execution. He is no longer trying to be impressive. He is simply being precise. And while others self-sabotage under pressure, he performs with calm urgency. While others second-guess their instinct, he trusts his preparation. While others collapse after a single failure, he remains steady because failure never touched who he is. This is the secret of Stoic success. The man who no longer needs the win is now most qualified to receive it, because he is no longer a servant to desire. He is a servant only to truth. Legacy that cannot be dismantled. The final gift of Stoicism is not just the ability to succeed, but the ability to succeed cleanly, repeatedly, and without fear. Because the Stoic builds systems that outlive him, not just in business, but in character, in relationships, in moral clarity. And in the end, when he dies, as we all do, his name may not ring in every hall, but his effect will. He leaves behind not just companies or works or achievements. He leaves behind order. He leaves behind structure. He leaves behind example. He is remembered not because he was the loudest, but because he was the clearest. And long after the markets change, and the opinions shift, and the platforms collapse, and the imitators vanish, his presence remains, like a pillar that once held up a temple, even if the temple is long gone. Because true success isn't an outcome, it's a condition of being, and the Stoic is that condition, personified. Now, if any part of this message has been helpful to you, leave us your like and comment, helping the algorithm recommend it to someone who needs it at this time. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos. And if you look through the videos we've already uploaded, you're sure to find something to take with you. Have a good day.